I was the first Bachelor in Ukraine. There were 42 million people in the country of Ukraine. I think 39 watched the show. There was a joke at one point, like the ones that don't see just don't have electricity. It was actually a big deal moment where one of us speaking our language comes from a different place.
What's doing, everybody? I'm Alec Lace. Thank you for watching First Class Fatherhood. Today's guest on the podcast is dancing sensation Maksim Chmerkovskiy. You guys know Maksim from Dancing with the Stars. He took home the Mirrorball back in 2014 when he partnered up with Olympian Merrill Davis. Most recently, Maksim was the sloth on the initial season of The Masked Dancer. It's exciting to have him on the podcast today, so get down there, smack the subscribe button, tap that like, and let's jump into it right now with Maksim Chmerkovskiy on First Class Fatherhood. Joining me now, First Class Father, Maksim Chmerkovskiy. Welcome to First Class Fatherhood.
Thank you so much. I'm still working on the First Class Father title, so.
Well, that's what you are in this show. Let's start it right there. How many kids? How old?
1 and 4 years old. Working on obviously more, but what a crazy experience.
Yeah, very cool. Now, did you guys find out what you were having with your son, or did you guys wait till the end to find out?
No, we found out. We're like the most impatient parents, and like, is it now? Is it now? Can we find out now? No, the whole process was crazy, and I still remember like it was yesterday. You know, Peter called, and I was on a tour bus, and she's like, "Hey, call me." Oh no, she texted me. She's like, "Call me when you can." Oh, she said something like, "Get up, get away from everybody," and called me. I'm like, we're driving from city to city, and everyone is on my bus for that leg of the, we're just like playing games or something like that. And I was like, "No, tell me now." And so she called, and she was like, "It's a boy." And the whole thing erupted. And I'm not gonna lie, when my parents asked me when I was little what I wanted, a brother or a sister, I said sister off the bat right away, and didn't get it. Got the brother. So for some reason I felt like, had she said a girl, I'd be in love as well. But I feel like, I don't know, something about it's a boy. For a man, I don't know. It felt like this is the right thing to have happened, and now let's have all the girls after that. Like, we're good with the boy with the boys now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We had our 3 boys first, and then got the girl on the 4th try. So we're pretty persistent on that as well. But
Yeah.
if we didn't get her on 4, we'd have 5 by now. But we got her, and she runs the show over here now. So
Love it.
Max, if you could please just take a second here to hit my listeners a little bit about your background and what you do.
I'm a professional dancer. I would say specifically ballroom dancer. Why specifically is because that's what landed me on, end of the day result of why we're sitting here is Dancing with the Stars in 2005. I was a competitive ballroom dancer from Ukraine. We immigrated with my family in 94, kept it moving, kept it dancing quite literally. And then, reached heights, represented US for all these years since the 90s. And by the time Dancing with the Stars came to US, they literally just went down the list and said, "Hey, we want this guy who's ranked #1," and so on and so forth. And, I said no many times and eventually gave in, luckily for me. And here we are.
Yeah, what an amazing ride it's been. Now, what was the genesis of you getting involved in dance? Like for myself, if I don't have the Majersky vodka in me, I ain't hitting the dance floor. Like, you know what I mean? So were you always a dance from a kid? What was the spark that led you on this path here?
I had nothing to do with dance. I didn't think I wanted to have anything to do with dance. It was a very, it's why we're in this communication, is because it was my parents, and it's a kind of like a cute thing to say. Everybody always like, "Oh, my mom and dad was so good," but my mom and dad were amazing, and the first thing they did first of all, they had me when they were quite young. They were in their, late teens when they found out. And I think the 20s is when, Pops had a baby, right? And so, they're the same age, 1920. And so, when here I am, this is 1981, 82, 83, 84, when I'm 1, 2, 3, 4. And so they're figuring out what to do with me. And I think that they landed on the most genius, simplest, philosophy. If you limit his free time, he's bound not to get in more trouble than less, right? And then it just kind of got away from them in the sense of like, dancing started at 4. They sent me to a school of some kind of performing arts at 4. Like, okay, can give me let me live a little, but then somebody walked in and kind of like pointed at the boys and said, hey, these 5, if you want them to join ballroom dancing school. And again, nobody knew what that was. My parents are 2 engineers, 4 left feet between the 2 of them. Pop's got a mean clap and a little knee jerk and a head bop, and that's about it, and here we are, the dance family, so it was interesting. But I got to tell you, they're my role models, and the way they pursued this whole like upbringing in raising a child, because they worked, but it got away from them. By that I mean that at 5 I joined ballroom dance school. Then by 6 I was in school first grade, and then it was the after school curriculum of like the math and the sciences, and then the USSR or post USSR school system was crazy already to begin with, and so they kept piling on things afterwards. I was in a soccer team, I was in tennis team, I was in some kind of making I was in a club that was making toy planes and model planes and model boats. I remember like vividly cutting and gluing and sending them out. I was a chemistry and biology major when I was in 6th, 7th grade. I remember I spent the whole summer getting tutored in chemistry in order to apply to the school that was just like super crazy. I made a junior Olympic, I think USSR at that time, because it fell apart in about like 89-ish. It started to, the 89, it was just all kind of like separate countries. But until within that period of time, like when I was 8, 9, I was chosen to an Olympic reserve for USSR for swimming. Parents didn't want me to move to Moscow, where that, whatever that, thing was meant to be, where I would have lived and trained and become this Olympic swimmer or whatever that was. So dancing kind of stuck around as, the through line. A lot of things started and kind of fade out. I think tennis fade out because of the money. To be honest, we never had any money. And so these things were like, if we can afford, let's do it. I had no idea. I just knew that I was always busy and that I always had something to do. And it was always like, hey, since we're already doing it, why don't we try to be the best at it, right? Let's low key do your best at everything you do. And then it kind of like, I'm not sure if my parents were obsessive. I don't think they were, but there was a lot of push on whatever you do it at your best. And then next thing you know, I'm doing freaking everything, and everything has to be top level.
Yeah, and one thing you say there, Maksim, you say that the more time you're doing the dance or you're involved in these activities, the less time you spend on the street, less time you get a chance to get in trouble. One of the problems we got in the U.S., and I
Yeah,
talk about it on the show all the time, is we got a fatherless crisis going on in our country
right,
here, where so many kids are
right.
growing up without a father, and that leads them right into the path of getting into all this trouble. If they don't find that father figure, it's having a devastating result on our society. Is that similar in Russia? Is there a fatherless problem over there? Or do you see that more here? What is the difference between families over in Russia and opposed to families over here in America?
I mean, my country is Ukraine, just to kind of separate for the sake of geography and the fact that this is what it is. USSR was this one big giant, Cold War threat. Now it's like 15 different countries that can get it together. But Ukraine, growing up in Ukraine was pretty crazy. Like I said, because I was in that period of time when everything fell apart and I was already sort of kind of understanding things. But I have to say that what I've noticed with our upbringing is that I think it was kind of like, I think the fatherless problem is a big issue everywhere. I think that whenever there's a conflict, people tend to, and by conflict I mean like it's tough in this country, or it's tough in that country, or it's tough, what I'm saying, like wherever that region is. At that time it was a very hot region. Things were falling apart. People were not, there was no social services, so there were no opportunities to work. The work opportunities is what makes a man, what makes a man, like we could just end it at that, right? And so when you have a man, or you have men, group of men, country of men, countries of men that don't have the opportunities to work and provide and make their surroundings happy, right? In the fact that they're working and providing, right? Because don't forget, back then, you know, it's kind of relevant now that we're talking about it, but that phrase, the woman belongs in the kitchen, that was some bullshit that was said, and it was said quite often. And it was kind of like the way the old world was built, right? And so let's not talk about it, but let's talk about the other side. That old world was built on that. So then the opposite side of that was, well, then men got to go and do that thing, right? So if the country doesn't provide the opportunities for that man, even though this backwards mentality, exists, that man comes home without having brought anything, this is going to become an issue. And so what I noticed, and I didn't notice it in Ukraine, just to your point, I noticed it once we immigrated, that we ended up in East New York, in Brooklyn, again, very Russian influenced. By Russian, I mean Russian speaking, right? So the confusion, Russia, Ukraine, we all spoke Russian. USSR was just one big Russia. And then when it fell apart, everybody adopted their native language. So a lot of Russian speaking people would end up in East New York and Brooklyn. And what I noticed is that there's a whole generation of immigrants that just didn't make it as families. Man, look, it was tough over there. It's not cake over here. That's a misconception. Everybody's like, oh, let's go to America. Money falls from the sky, and, Terminator walks around the streets and Batman can fly in whenever you dial 911. None of that is happening, right? What happens is that my dad's working 3 jobs, 2 of them a dishwasher and pizzeria, and the other one is delivering the pizzas from a different pizzeria, right? So, while studying, while trying to assimilate, while having 2 kids, 8 and 14, and a wife who have spent that time being the mother, being the not the housewife, but she was the nucleus of the family so that he can go and do this thing that he does, right? And he did. And a lot of parents didn't. A lot of fathers said, and again, I'm not judging, I'm just saying the reality was that it was so hard and it was so not what it was advertised as, immigrating, everything's free. That men were just like, look, I can't do this thing that I'm supposed to do and bring that piece of steak. And at the same time, and because of that, I'm not bad, but I'm like, there's issues and we're fighting and there's trouble. You know what? Let me just start fresh. And men would leave, and so that would become that fatherless. And again, the same thing is in, the blue collar, situated ghettos, the third world countries, the conflict countries, that whenever there's a region that has groups of people that are not making it, and are not privileged, it's a problem. And so, I gotta say that my parents, are my heroes, regardless of, the fights that we have. And obviously I'm 41, so we've spent 41 years living together, going through things, going ups and downs. Never have I ever felt given up on, and that's the biggest thing. My brother and I felt more love than we a lot of times deserved. Certainly more love than a lot of my friends around me would get, and it would show not just in extra hugs and kisses, but it would be shown in the fact that whenever I come home, I actually felt safe. I felt like I can recharge, and that English language that I don't understand, this high school that I've seen the most violence in my entire life in 3 years of my high school in Brooklyn, and this UFC right now does not compare to, some things that you see that goes on in that kind of environment where you got like 2,000 people crammed into a building. They come from different places. There's no time for everybody to assimilate, just sink or swim, right? So whenever I would come home, I would feel safe. And that's where discrepancy lies. That's when families fall apart, when the 2 people in charge, the ones that made the commitment to each other, and the ones that come after are not willing to say, look, this is tough, but because of all of this, we got to do what we have to do. People just give up.
Yeah, very well said. Yeah, and it's a shame when it does happen because, like I said, it does have a toll on our society, and it's easier said than done too. And I realize that. And then obviously,
And just a disclaimer, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not judging men. I'm not judging women that leave. I'm not, I'm not judging is also not a word, but like, I get it. I get it. You make an option. There's a door A, option A and option B, maybe C, D, and F, whatever. I'm an option A guy in the sense that if I made a commitment to my wife, I'm committed to my wife. If I made commitment to having kids with my wife or with that person, I'm having kids with that person. I made commitment to that family unit now. I may sound a little like, oh, you're saying it because you and Peter are great and your kid is fine and all of this stuff. But just maybe, this was the reason why we didn't get married or together when I was 18. She was 19. We're not high school sweethearts, that type of stuff. It was not my life journey. My life journey is that I met my eventual wife and we got married. First, we had a kid and then we got married in my mid 30s, So by the time I was in this whole fatherhood, I was not just ready and willing, I was set and ready to go. And even then, I had no idea what it was. And even then, we went through a lot of stuff that everybody goes through. But we had this buffer because we're not kids ourselves yet already, And so I think it helped.
I always do make the disclaimer there too when I talk about this that it never takes anything away from the single moms that are out there working miracles and doing these things because
No,
it's not to take anything away from them. Just saying that the fact of and what you mentioned there too before, I know Burger King put that out there as a clickbait thing. Women belong in
I
the
saw that
kitchen.
today. Yeah.
They did that for an advertising purpose to draw people in. But that slogan, we've definitely changed the way we view moms and the way we view women in the workforce. That whole thing, the way we look at the dads, they have changed as well. And it's like
Right.
I always say on my show, we're not babysitters, we're fathers. We get that sometimes. You be out at the supermarket and new dad, oh, you're babysitting the kid today for you. So it's like they still have that kind of negative stigma to the father, which I think
Yeah,
needs to change as well.
absolutely. Listen, I just said to my wife, she's out with her girls for dinner, and I can't be happier. I've always supported that. She needs to have her own thing, and I've always supported that. You also have me. I'm also the guy who's completely in love and attached to our kid. I have nowhere near mom son connection, and I know that because I am a mama's boy myself. And I'm not just fine with that. I'm happy about that. I'm happy that I'm a boy growing into a man. In my view, one of the most important fundamental things is to have that mom connection. We talked about in the beginning, like fatherless situation, terrible. Motherless situation is worse. To me, in my understanding. You can get through some of the fatherless things. Without a mom, you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
and I'll tell you what, I could speak to this. Like personally, I lost both of my parents before I became a father myself. And when I'm in these moments, and I've talked about this parenting without parents before on the show, but it's when I'm in these moments with my kids, it's always my mother I think about, and never like
Right.
don't think like, oh, what my father. Like I'm always constantly talking to my mom when I can, whether it be through prayer, meditation, whatever it may be, and I'm always trying to have those conversations with her because it's her that I really wish could be here in a lot of these moments with me.
And I don't know that, thank God, knock on wood, whatever. And I hope my parents stay around for forever. But, I know that it's not the reality. And one day it's going to perish. And I see my grandma today in her late 80s and with some, Alzheimer's that she has. And and I could see that the sadness in my dad's eyes, and God forbid if that's ever my mom, it'll be very devastating because of the connection that we have, right? And that connection is what allowed me to make the right choices, make choices that were right for the situation. It might not have been the right choice, but it was correct choice for the situation because I feel the connection with a mom, and so um, you have the fatherless problem for sure, but like I said, the motherless problem would have been a much bigger issue. There's some fundamental connection that's required, when you come out of your mom. You're not birthed by your dad, you're birthed by your mom, and maybe what I'm saying is a little bit controversial. We have a lot of couples. We have friends that are, two-man couples that have incredible parenting instincts that are doing a phenomenal job with their kids. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that if that's not your path, you know, between moms and dads missing in a person's life, I think mom is a much heavier sort of effect. And go back to what you asked me before about my country and where I come from, and whether there's a parentless but fatherless specifically problem. I think that problem is wherever there's a conflict. There's plenty of wars. I grew up, when I was growing up, again, in former USSR, military was mandatory. In the beginning of 80s, I remember, I don't remember because I was one, two, three, four, five, but by the time I was like nine, and I saw eight, seven, eight, nine, I think, is when Afghanistan conflict was coming to an end, and so we seen our boys come back. And I remember my uncle, my mom's youngest brother, coming in from the war, and that's when I realized. And later in the years, I remember that memory. Going back to that memory, I realized that we were sending 18-year-old kids who are just mandatory in my army. We would give them rifle, and we would tell them, "Hey, do this point over there," and send them straight to Nagorno Karabakh. I don't know how to say it in English, but this was that conflict zone, in between whatever was Afghanistan and the Russian USSR territory. That's crazy. That's wartime. That's actual wartime. That's actual kind of like World War II, when the whole world all of a sudden had to go and do that thing. And this was meant to be a conflict that isn't even our conflict, right? So those kind of situations where I guess, government doesn't really provide alternatives, that's what leads to, hey, you know what? Not even gonna have kids right now, because why? I'm about to go do that stuff that why would I want to birth someone and then leave him parentless, right? But on the other side, the reality is that women, in their basic most instinct, have to kind of have that, where the reproduction side, the biological clock ticking, right? So you have women who still want to reproduce, and men who are coming back messed up in the head or not coming back at all. That leads to so many different sociological issues. I'm just gonna touch up 2 seconds. You can cut it out, but back in the day, I was the first Bachelor in Ukraine when the television show came over, and the concept was bought by the Ukrainian network. They kind of went around and sort of tried to find that dude that fits the bill of the first Bachelor, right? And they called me, and I was already established in US and was already dancing with the stars. This was around 2009, 2008, something like that. I don't remember the timeline, but um, I remember how they got me, because I kept saying no. I said no in the emails. I said no on the phone. I said, no, guys, don't fly over. No, we don't have to sit down. I'm telling you, I'm not going to do it. It's just a laughable sort of thing. But they're like, look, we're going to fly in. We're going to have dinner. We're going to talk. And you don't have to do it. You just will fly back. I was like, okay, fine. I remember I came to that meeting like out of shower. I was just in rehearsal, for, one of my partners or something. And it was all fun and games until until they just got me. Smarter people than me, psychiatrists attached to the show, and the way they said it is that the problem with 25 women and one guy, that's a real thing. In the country of Ukraine at that time, that's how they said it. Statistically, it's a real thing, right? Because not just it's a real thing in numbers, but it's a real thing because there aren't one for one of people that are compatible in a way that this is love. And so what ends up happening is that slim pickings, right? And therefore, women look around, they're like, you know what? I will get that guy, right? I want that guy. Why I want that guy? Because he's got the stability, he's financially stable, right? So if we do have kids, I know my kids are going to be taken care of, right? And they're willing to give up a lot. And like, for example, any sort of equality, or any kind of like, he can smack her, he can raise his hand, he can be drunk and, act out, he can have mistresses, he can do this, that, and the other. And so the chick is just, you just sit at home, you do that thing you do, and when I come, I'll come. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a weird, the way it was all brought up. And so I was kind of built to be the guy who has the right kind of morals. And from that giant platform of the TV show they've never seen, obviously it's going to be a big deal. And it was. Not to kind of pat in the back, because it's nothing to do with me. I was just a character in whatever the production they were putting together. But there were 42 million people in the country of Ukraine. I think 39 watched the show. There was a joke at one point, like, the ones that don't see just don't have electricity. It was actually a big deal moment where one of us speaking our language comes from a different place. That was 2008. I haven't been in the country for like 15 years at that point, 14, something like that. And it really shook me. And so my Bachelor experience had nothing to do with all these ladies and all these, hugs and kisses. You watch the show here, it's like, if it doesn't make out on day one, it's not a show. It's not going to work, right? But back then, they wanted it. They wanted this just like debauchery and this experience. And here I am, and I'm like, no, guys, I'm committed to showing men how to act, and I'm committed to showing women that you don't have to be sexy because you like, touchy feely and all that suave stuff, but you can have a conversation and be engaging and be interesting, without thinking when are we gonna, when she's gonna get intoxicated enough so we can go do that thing, right? So I may be overthinking everything. I may be, I have a specific sort of like OCD when it comes to train of thought and how I perceive things and how I kind of like analyze stuff. And maybe I've overanalyzed. Maybe I should have just gone there and, done what, you see or all these bachelors do. But the way I agreed to this, was, I'm happy. I come from a happy place. I come from a happy background. We've gone through that thing that a lot of my friends and a lot of their parents didn't make it out of. I got out of Brooklyn. I got out of East New York. Not that it's a bad place, but I got out of that situation. And here I am, and I made it. I just want everybody to understand what it's actually like to be in the position of happiness and the right way, right? So it's not about the money. It's not about the cars and the houses and all that. You shouldn't be, as a woman, attracted to that. And stability. You should be attracted to self-respect. You should be attracted to not independence per se, but you should be attracted to wanting to be the best version of yourself. How can you be that when the guy you're with isn't treating you as such? And so I think that just a lot of foundation, a lot of details go into foundation of the right type of family, the right type of couple, the right type of couple for the kids. You can be an amazing couple for each other, that's another thing, but maybe you're just not the best couple for reproduction because you're not willing to give up some of you. You're not willing to give up a lot of you because, again, as a parent, you are on what? How many kids you got? 4, 5? So it's
Four.
like
Yep.
you're on sixth place in your household. You're on sixth place. That's how I put me. It's her, and then it's them. For her, it's our son, and then it's herself. But for me, it's everybody, and then it's me distant in the back. I'm just picking up the rear. So
And jumping right on what you say, I think one of the problems that we do have that leads to these problems that we're seeing is the way that the media or the TV Hollywood portrays this stuff. And that's what we see. I've had several of the bachelors on the show here. I just think we're going about it the wrong way, especially the way that we portray dads on TV. We always see the dad that's single or the guy that's single, he's always sleeping around. He's got multiple girls. He's living this lifestyle. There's no responsibility. And then whenever we see the family guy, he's always never getting laid. He's never having any fun. And it looks, to the guy watching it, like, why in the world would I want to choose that lifestyle when I be like this guy, slinging my junk all over the street? So I think we do a bad job of doing it. I think these shows, they really do point and lead men into saying, hey, this is why you're going to select this girl. So hats off to you for doing it the right way. And then pulling it back into you as a father here. What would you say are the top values that you're hoping to instill in your son as he grows up?
Oh man, I mean, there's a list. I just think that he must be respectful, and he must be empathetic. I think that one of my biggest flaws is that, I'm not afraid to admit it, is I'm judgmental. I just go in and I can't help but have a train of thought that's that dance. I don't know if that's the best. It's the best dance they could have done. That car. I don't know. I mean, there's better cars. For me, everything is competitive. I think that messed me up a little bit. My life was always competition. Professional ballroom. It lets, for everybody who's not really, who can't make a connection, right? I'm a jock. I'm that kid. And if ballroom dancing was football, soccer, baseball, whatever, basketball, right? I'm that. I'm elite. I'm LeBron coming out of high school, for example, right? So now it's understood, right? A little bit. All my life was about coming in first. Because otherwise, why do it? So you don't have that drive. You're not gonna really get to that place. If you're not gonna get to that place, why do it, right? Go choose a different profession. So it was tough for me to stop that, or to change that over into life and reality, that this is not a competition. Life is not a competition. You can come in first in the form of great career, beautiful house, incredible family, backyard, pool, kids, dogs, whatever, right? I can come in first in terms of great career, house, kids, beautiful dog, whatever, right? You don't have to look at my house and say, yeah, my house is bad. Like we tend to get into it that way, right? So I think one thing I want to instill is how to figure out. I'm still working on it. How to figure out that, for Shy and for the rest of our kids, whenever they come, to have that drive, to have that interest, but at the same time, not to overwhelm themselves with everything else is also competition, because again, now we're talking back to that Bachelor stuff and the fact that people choose people and all that. Again, it's all competitive, oh, my wife is this, but his wife is that. Now all of a sudden I'm not in love with my wife. What is that? What was the basis of your relationship, to begin with, right? So I want to instill first and foremost that life is not a competition, but you got to compete, right? I'll figure it out. I don't know how to formulate it yet. The second thing is empathy, for sure. This kid needs to understand, I kicked a cat one time when I was little. I remember I got an ass whooping. This was back in the motherland, right? So ass whooping was allowed. and I got an ass whooping. And I was like, I couldn't understand why. It's just a cat, right? My dad since back then, I remember how it was yesterday, I was single digits still. And I just kicked the cat, and I was a stray cat. Kids in the whatever, like they were doing their thing, and I did that thing too, And so I got it, and Pop saw it from the window, and I got an ass whooping. And then I realized, I'm like, that's not, that's not how I need to be. That's not the way to go. That I need to make decisions, based on what I believe truly, and not based on what people do around me. Again, something extremely relevant today in our day and age with the stupid social media, where nothing is real. Nothing is real. This isn't that type of conversation, but like everything we see on TV, like I tweeted something yesterday about that Meghan Markle and Harry, everybody, the whole world is watching. And I was like, I can't believe this might all be true. And in the same sentence, I said, and I cannot believe that I'm saying maybe, or might. all be true, because I'm leaving the benefit of the doubt, because I don't trust anybody. Yeah, I don't trust anybody. Because today everyone speaking is pursuing some kind of interest with PR or otherwise. And so how do you believe, how do you differentiate, how do you get through all this noise, right? So that's something that you need to instill, the not competitive nature, or ability to differentiate, empathy, and understanding where it's not about that for you. This is a TV show, let that be it. And even if it's your friend's family, even if it's somebody else, like, you got to live your life, you got to believe your beliefs, and you got to keep to your fundamental background, right? And so for the last 4 years, and for the next however many years, and for whenever the new kids come, and whoever it's going to be, my wife and I, we're in that rhythm. We're in the rhythm of, now we've assimilated to the life of the parents. I never try to fight the life of a parent. I try not to stop my life and start a new one. I try to make it so that I keep myself to myself too, so that my wife and I keep ourselves to each other as well. And that was through uneducated battles, some unnecessary fights. But I think that where we are is in a perfect balance. We're still working through a lot of stuff, but a lot of new stuff comes. I've never had a 4-year-old, and then next year I will have never had a 5-year-old, and so on. So I'm looking forward to all those issues, because today I feel like we have enough foundation to get through it, and enough understanding to, as we're getting through our drama, not to offset his upbringing, and not to, shake up their foundation. The last thing I'll say is, for me, parenting is like building a house. I think it's a very simple sort of analogy. If you're just compounding things one on top of another without thought, just bricklaying is not enough. You can build a house not out of brick, but it can be much sturdier, right? Or you can be an idiot and just lay things on top of each other on the ground, paint it all yellow, and pretend that it's pretty. It's not. So for me, it's very important that it's brick by brick, and there's no fault in between, because by the time I'm finished building, I'm not going to deal with rotten foundation. So it's very important for me, the day to day, the what's happened today, what's going to happen tomorrow, the schedule, the sleeping, the napping, the whether he's eating, the fact that it's not, well, he ate well yesterday. Well, it's not about that. It's about today and tomorrow and every day after that. And I live by example. I try to lead by example. So I do everything I say to do.
Yeah, very well said. And one of the things that's crazy is I feel like I still haven't yet figured out how to be a teenager, and I got two of them now, So it's like I got to try to figure out how to be the parent of the two teenagers. So the whole game constantly is evolving, growing, learning, changing, developing, and that's all part of the fun. They're teaching me a lot more about myself sometimes than
Absolutely.
I'm even learning about them. So that's why I love the process. And yeah, and just because you were on the Max Dancer there, did your son get a chance to see you in the costume? What did he think about the whole thing, and what was the experience like for you to be a part of the show?
He loved it. He loved, first of all, the experience was incredible, and I'm going to be super selfish about this. And I'll say it like, I wanted to say it for a long time, but, being someone who played, what did I play on Dancing with the Stars? I was,
Partner.
nah, but yeah, I was given someone whose experience this is going to be, right? So, excuse me. So I would be I would be, here you go, right? She's now all yours. And I would be like, hey, hi, how you doing? And here's the journey that we're going to be on. And the person will obviously would not have known what they signed up for. Obviously would end up in like a lot of drama, a lot of trouble physically. Oh my God, and my body's not holding up because I'm Kirstie Alley and I'm 68 or something, or whatever, 61 at that time. And so, or I'm going through some issues and so on and so forth. So for all of a sudden, I have an opportunity to be in a position where I just show up and enjoy the process, because that's what we've been telling them. Like, hey, boo, Just show up and enjoy the process. I got you. I got the routine. I got the costumes. I got the timing. I got where you need to be. I'll hold you by your hand for 2 months. I'll be your psychiatrist, your teacher, your shoulder to cry on, everything, right? And so when the production called and I got invited to be on Mass Dancer. Obviously, initially it was a no. For me in my head, I never said it, but initial reaction was, "Come on." We had a conversation about something completely different, and so then I was like, you know what? I'll do it, but I'll do it under one condition. I said that I want to show up to work and I want to think about nothing. I want to, if it's a dance, get somebody to choreograph it, and I'll do that. I just want to learn steps. I want to be a team player. I want to put on the show. I want to do my part, but I don't want to do anything other than that. I don't want to, what I said, and the reason why I said it's not because I want to experience what the celebrities experience on our show. That's what everybody thinks. That's not true. What the reality was is that I wanted to not stand in my own way. The reality, again, this is the first interview where I actually say it, but the reality was that I believe that some of my misinterpreted, antics, if you will, on Dancing with the Stars led to me not winning more than I could have. I have one trophy, 18 seasons, and it was amazing. Honestly, looking back, everything was the way it was meant to be. But could I have done better? Absolutely. Could I kept my mouth shut? 100%. Could I say less critical things of the show and judges and probably would have led to a little more positive response? Sure. But I would probably then also kind of like go away in the background and not be the Max everybody knows and all that stuff. Having said that, this is a new opportunity, still a competition, right? That I was walking into, and I was like, look, if you're gonna give me a dance and then say, here's 4/8, choreograph your own thing because you're great at it, I don't want to do it. And they're like, done, perfect. So I would come into work, nobody knew who I was. Mass dancer, mass singer is such that this huge NDA. If you tell your mom, she has to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I ended up not telling anybody because I didn't want them to follow up with a here, sign here, whatever. But it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. With Shy, in the beginning, it was kind of like I was one of 10 characters, whatever, 11. So we kind of let him do his thing. Towards the end, when it was becoming prominent that Sloth is doing well and he's this big creature, giant furry stuffed animal, he started to notice, and then Peter would say, "Hey, Shush, this is Papa." It's like, "Papa, no way." And then in the finale, big reveal, we actually kept him up. He saw it, and he was ecstatic. It was great. He's like, "Papa, Papa, so it's you." Proudest moment, because again, Peter is on Dancing with the Stars still. I'm no longer part of it. Great, but they go to work, in the fall of last year when dancing came back, and we weren't able to go in to the lot, but he remembered, and so every time we would pass by, waiting for mommy outside of the CBS lot where it's shot, um, he would say, "Mama's work," and he kind of remembered, and I'm like, "What? Papa's work too," So my
Do you get
goal.
to keep the costume or no?
No, they go somewhere to like a museum or something under lock and key. It's crazy. By the way, costumes are amazing. Amazing. I mean,
I see that.
the whole thing was like 50 pounds. It was extremely hard to dance in, obviously, but it was great. My
Yeah,
whole plan right now, my whole goal is to just, stay physically fit and able to do stuff. And, instead of what I used to have as a goal to like just go away in some kind of pre-production and all that, is still happening. But, for the sake of having at least one of my children see what Papa can still do, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want him to live by, old black and white photos of, Pops winning a trophy back 30 years ago type of stuff,
And what
I
are your
want him to
plans
see
here?
it.
What kind of goals or plans do you have here for yourself in the future? What kind of projects you working on?
like I said, I was fully committed to moving on to hosting, to again producing. I'm big on putting things together. I don't shy away from a lot of people like, oh my God, this is above my pay grade. I don't want to deal with this and the other. And so for me, whenever I would, the first time I remember I joined a tour, it was back in beginning of Dancing with the Stars, and there was, I think, the first winter arenas tour, not the first, the last of that sort they ran, and I was given the uh, not just a performer, but I was also a choreographer and co-director. So it was 32 numbers, all choreographed by me. It was amazing. It was a huge, huge experience, but it was at that time that I realized that I'm just fascinated about everything, how it works. Not just like here I am doing the cha-cha, but like I want to know how many stagehands, how many trucks, how many buses, how many people do you have to pay, what's the payroll look like? I want to know everything. And so I think my passion lies in putting things together and producing. But I also want to capitalize on being in front of camera, on being heard, right? And so we all strive for um, audience, right? And eyeballs. And today, I can tell you how incredibly lucky the the me, the people who are on TV are, and they don't understand that, whether it's movies, streaming today, or any kind of this sort of interaction, right? Um, it's a privilege, it's a privilege, and for me, I want that privilege earned, right? So I want to do stuff that keeps me out there so that I can be given these sort of opportunities and say my piece and explain who I am in my answers. And this is very important to me because I have a lot to say, and I think I represent a very sort of not niche, not unique, but I'm weird. I have an accent. I've been in this country for almost 30 years. I'm not there over there. I'm also not from over there. You know what I mean? So like I'm kind of like in this limbo in between. We live in a crazy freaking time. We've gone through the most ridiculous year. We're still sort of stuck in that aftermath. We have been through a couple of crazy political, movements. I am more than ready not to see my politicians on television. I'm more than ready to focus on entertainment. Not to mask the issues and the problems and stop talking about them. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that my particularly job was to come on at 8 p.m. after you've spent the day dealing with your boss, dealing with your loved ones, going through some issues with your kids, dealing with their stupid principals in their school who are just just very strange people sometimes to deal with. Um, and turn on the TV, sit down and watch that dude right here, that guy. This guy who is really there just to kind of like get my mind off of things, right? I want to be that guy. I've been that guy my entire life. I know that I have a skill to get your mind off the issues, and I can follow up if if then I can follow up with something profound that leaves you not just happy but also kind of like also sort of intellectually and intelligently fed. Then you walk away and maybe you go home, or maybe you turn off the TV, turn around, and instead of staying in this conflict, you will try to kind of like, what, it's not even worth it. You know, um, I'm not sure if that's far fetched. I'm not sure if that's thinking of yourself too much or in some kind of whatever. I'm not Dalai Lama, I'm not trying to be, but I'm going to try to be the best version of me every time I'm given an opportunity to be on someone's screen, whether it's in front of one person, a couple of thousand people in the theater, maybe like 15,000 in the arena, or what were we, 39, 32 million back in the day on Dancing with the Stars on Monday nights. I mean, it was it was good times.
Yeah, no doubt. And you've been crushing it. I love your voice and what you're all about. We definitely need guys like out there with the missions that you have. So I look forward to seeing what you do in the future. And the last thing I'm going to hit you with here, Maxim, I love to ask all the dads that get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new dad or for that about to be father who's out there listening?
Off the top of my head, don't freak out. Don't freak out and freak out, but don't lead to kind of decisions. Oh my God, what is this? This is what we have to do. Just go with it. I freaked out a lot about the whole pregnancy and health, and I was freaking out when he was born and how little he was, and some of the crazy experiences we had, and that it was just too neurotic. I'm looking forward to other kids. Not that I would care less, but I now know how not to go too far. And I want to experience another pregnancy, another birth, another, all this process without it being my first, so that I can actually enjoy it, and not just look back at it in hindsight. But I think that if it's bullshit, but I can't speak in one sentence. I'm not a soundbite guy. Do you see why I had problems on dancing? They're like answer in one sentence. Um, I think I think that the only thing that I could say, if it's concise, is you can do it. To everybody, every dad, every person, every guy out there who's trying to be or wants to be or accidentally becomes a dad, you can do it. You can do it, and you should do it. It's in your DNA. You know, that club, that night of debauchery, that time with the boys. Not only is it going to come back, it's going to be way more potent, and it's going to be way more exciting when you're in your 40s, and you trust me, it's more exciting on a golf course, or or somewhere else, than it would be in a club. Allow that change to happen, and allow your body to welcome it. A lot of these new guys are living some kind of college days and still sort of thinking of themselves in that capacity, and you're not that, and you shouldn't be. It's unnatural. It is natural to have that fun, but it's also natural to then at one point commit to something else. And this is your wife, this is his life, her life, whoever they are, and it's your family unit. And that's the most important thing for men.
Yeah, very well said. I love the message. This has been a lot of fun for me. I got to say, Maksim Chmerkovskiy, you're a first class father all the way, and thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time here on First Class Fatherhood.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.